My first video was more than 15 minutes, and YouTube wouldn't let me upload it. So you're going to have 30 minutes to respond to this question tomorrow. Again, there's 2 FRQs with 7 parts each, and since 14 total, you will pick the 7 that you are most comfortable with and respond to those. If you have anything you want to type and organize your thoughts, there's a space right here for that will not be graded, so you just put whatever you want in there. The first FRQ has 2 stimuli to it: a map of Europe in 1914 before World War I, and then a map of Europe in 2020. So this is after World War I and World War II and the Cold War. And your first question there, number 11, says, as shown in the maps, international boundaries in Europe changed considerably from 1914 to 2020. And you can see that. There's about 6 countries in this area up here, and there's about 15 in this area now. So 11A is examine the 2 maps and identify the goal of redrawing of the redrawing of many national boundaries. So when you examine the maps, why did they redraw this area in particular instead of being the Austro-Hungarian Empire to being about a half a dozen or so countries here? And you might remember from class, we saw that they broke it down into nationalities. So most of these are nation states. And we've learned before that many times multinational states tend to have a lot of centrifugal forces making them fly apart. So by splitting them up into smaller nation states, there's a centripetal, pulled together, unity in each of those states, and it might be more stable that way. So again, you're identifying the goal there to create nation states, to create increased stability in the region. Part B, based on the information in the maps, identify again a territory that was least impacted by boundary changes. So by looking at the 2 maps, you try to pick one that has none or very little changes in borders and changes in area. Then C, describe. So you're going to give all the relevant characteristics, but you do not need a because statement. So describe the boundary change that took place in Germany between 1914 and 2020. You're just giving the characteristics. You can see what Germany looks like in 2020. You can see how much larger Germany is, particularly in the East, before 1914. So describe what happened to Germany. Not why, just what's going on with the border. Then D builds on C. So explain in this case. Now you're going to describe and say why. Give a because statement. Explain how the change described in Task C reflects the trend of drawing state borders to match national identities. Why would they take this territory away over here and create a Poland and a Czechia and those kind of areas? Why would they want to do that? We mentioned that a little bit earlier. Again, tends to have more stability when you have nation states. E, explain, so again, characteristics and a because statement, how a geopolitical event following World War I resulted in the changes depicted on the 2020 map. So you can't say World War I because it's following. So it could be the Treaty of Versailles that ended the war. It could be World War II. It could be the Cold War and the fall of the Soviet Union around 1991. Any of those things just explain relevant characteristics and a because statement, how that resulted. 11F, use an example from the maps to explain how the dissolution of the Soviet Union created state boundaries. So you need to use one map or the other. The Soviet Union, the Russian Revolution started in 1914, and that eventually led to the creation of the Soviet Union formally by 1922. So this map is too early. You've got to use this map. And the dissolution of the Soviet Union is going to allow for new nation states like Ukraine and Belarus and your Baltic countries, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and a variety of others. Okay. Where are we at? That just use examples to explain. So again, make sure you have a because statement. Explain a challenge related to political identity that European countries continue to face. Again, you can get into conservative and political ideologies. We haven't really covered that very much in our political geography. We have talked a lot about federalism, federal governments, and unitary governments. So that might be a safer route to go there. Now we move on to 12. 12 does not have any stimuli. It's a zero stimuli prompt. So overall, 12 mentions that in response to devolutionary pressures, the United Kingdom granted new powers to Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland, enhancing the power of the legislature. Just a quick reference, since we do have the map available, here is the United Kingdom. The United Kingdom consists of two main chunks. First, you have the British area, the Great Britain. That is then broken down into England, which is through here, Wales, under the U and the K, and Scotland in the north. That's the British on the island of Britain. You also have Northern Ireland over here on a separate island, the island of Ireland. So those four, England, Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland, collectively make up the United Kingdom. And back down to 12. Describe the process of devolution. So mentioning all the relevant characteristics that go into devolution. You can write that on your card. You can look that up. B, explain, so again, all the relevant characteristics and a because statement, how the physical geography of the United Kingdom might contribute to devolution. And there's a few directions you could go here. You could mention that as an elongated state, Scotland is pretty far north from the, not I'm going to say Hearth's the right word, but from the capital of the United Kingdom, London, down here in the south. But an even better example is the completely separate landmass of Ireland over here, where Northern Ireland is at. That is certainly a completely separate landmass, as I mentioned, from the rest of the United Kingdom, the British part of it. Now on to 12C. Explain how the political geography, so instead of physical, now political, of the United Kingdom might contribute to devolution. You could talk about the fact that Wales used to be its own independent state. Scotland used to be its own independent state. The situation on Northern Ireland, again, used to be a separate state. And you can see that off of the 1914 map, where Northern Ireland was not part of the United Kingdom. Moving on, 12D, explain how cultural differences within the United Kingdom might serve as a devolutionary force. The most obvious cultural difference here is religion. Most of the people on the island of Britain are Protestant. You have Anglican in the south and more Presbyterian or Calvinist in the north. And Northern Ireland, you have a mixture of Protestant, but also of a heavy Catholic percentage there. And that would be a social factor that could certainly be a devolutionary force. And moving on to 12E, compare centripetal and centrifugal forces as they relate to political geography. So again, should always be a 4-sentence answer. So first, you're going to define centripetal forces as they relate, then centrifugal as they relate to political geography. Talk about what they do have in similarity, and they are both forces that affect the unity of a country, and what they have different. Obviously, one pulls people together and increases unity and stability. The other one causes them to fly apart and increases disunity, disunion, devolutionary forces. Okay. 12F, describe a cultural aspect of the United Kingdom that might serve as a centripetal force, something to help pull them together. You could possibly discuss food, although I know in our foods project there were some Irish foods, there were some Scottish foods, and I think there were some Italian or some Irish foods, and obviously the English have their own culinary tradition as well. You could talk about the flag, the Union Jack, and how it has different elements that date back to the heritage of England, Scotland, and I believe Wales as well. I know England and Scotland are both definitely represented on the British flag, and that helps those cultures feel like they belong. And then finally, explain how devolutionary pressures might impact the United Kingdom. So again, what are some characteristics of it, and what would be the cause of that? So you could mention anything along the lines of, we saw earlier a graphic or an ad that Scotland might feel like they're being used for their oil. And if they decide they want to break away and that it's no longer in their best interest to be part of the United Kingdom, that might lead to war. That could be more peaceful. It just depends. But again, you could say that Scotland might have a separatist movement because they want to have control over their own oil supply and the profits that generates. I hope this is helpful for you. I hope you do well and you feel confident tomorrow. Again, you're going to respond to 7 out of the 14 we just went over. Please email me if you have any questions. Take care.